AGM of the Dominica Diabetes Association. I see familiar faces here, but I do not know all the names. So to make it easier for me, I'm just going to ask everyone to say something about themselves, their names, and if they're representing any specific institution, they could also include that. Ms. Prevost, I will start with you because you are so close to me. So I could start with you. Thank you very much. Mr. Murphy? Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. The lady next to Mr. Murphy. Thank you. Welcome. Ms. Julian. Good. Thank you. Okay, so we got everybody? Well, my name is Reginald Lachlan the Flower. I'm a member of the Dominica Diabetes Association. And I'm here this morning to chair this morning's activity. The president, who is Miss Marvelyn Birmingham, could not be here physically in person for health reasons. So on her behalf, I would like to sincerely make an apology. For I know, although she's not physically present with us, but her mind and her heart is united with us at this point in time, and I'm certain she will follow it by Zoom as well. So I've not forgotten anybody. If I'd probably done it differently, I may have forgotten some people. But everybody here has introduced himself or herself. Just before we begin, I'm going to give you a little brain teaser. Going to demonstrate. Right. I'm going to demonstrate, and you will tell me what it is. It's a Caribbean island. I make it easier for you. Okay? Anybody ready? Nevis? No. Dominica? No. Go again? Not Barbados either. Trinidad. Why? Why Trinidad? Tree, that's a tree. That's my name. And the dad. Thank you very much. So without any further ado, we always put God first in everything that we are engaged in. And so I will now call upon Dr. Honoré Felix to do the opening prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Let's all stand as we welcome the presence of the Almighty. Eternal Father, God of love, how excellent is your name in all the earth. Father, this morning we glorify you, we bless your name, we uplift your name, dear Lord. We thank you for life, we thank you for strength and the ability to be present at the annual general meeting of the Dominica Diabetes Association, dear Lord. We thank you for being present and we welcome you. We pray that everything that we do and say here, dear Lord, most importantly, would be a means of uplifting you. And dear Lord, even as we are here, we remember all of those patients that are suffering with diabetes, dear Lord. We know their aches and pains, but you know most importantly, we ask that you would continue being with them, continue strengthening them, continue healing them and doing the work that you have not finished as yet. We pray for the proceedings of today, dear Lord. We pray that everything would go as planned and even better because you are in control. Dear Lord, even as we are here, we remember the such things that are looking for the little girl, dear Lord, and we pray that she would be found and that she would be okay. We thank you, dear Lord, once again, and we thank you for being in our presence. In your most holy and precious name, amen. Kindly be seated. Thank you.
Now we come to the welcome remarks, which would have been done by Ms. Birmingham, but in her absence, I take that opportunity to welcome each and every one of you here this morning to DOMDA's annual general meeting. I'm thrilled with your presence here this morning, and your presence means a lot to us as an association. And may we continue in our lives to take care of ourselves in the best possible way. Health is so essential. It's an integral part of our lives. And without health, we can be struggling sometimes. In the absence of the President, I will now invite Nurse Yuseb to come and share the President's report.
Good morning to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual general meeting. We give special thanks to the many who have joined this meeting via social media. We value your comments and advise that we move forward in rebuilding this organization. On behalf of Ms. Marvelyn Birmingham, who is the President, as the first Vice President, I deliver her report. It is with regret that I cannot deliver this address in person. I have had to travel out of Dominica for medical reasons. I acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Irvin McIntyre, and thank you, sir, for consenting to address this meeting. A special welcome to Dr. Reginald Lachlan, the chair-elect of the North American Caribbean region of the International Diabetes Federation, and Dr. Bernard, adjunct professor of medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine and president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Both Dr. Lachlan and Dr. Neal Bernard will be joining us virtually on the Zoom meeting platform. Ladies and gentlemen, friends all, we have had to postpone 2 consecutive AGMs for obvious reasons. We apologize to the membership, sponsors, and the general public for this unavoidable lapse. The chosen theme which guides this AGM, DOMDA and Diabetes, Reimagining the Future, is a call for reflection on the association's current position, but also a call to action to redefine our purpose and chart new directions in the post-disaster, post-pandemic era. The past 2 years were very challenging for the association. The advent of COVID-19 and subsequent curfew, school closures, and drastic reduction in gatherings and in-person activities resulted in the suspension of ongoing programs and a reduction in the planning and execution of new programs. That period was also an extremely challenging one for people living with non-communicable diseases, especially those with diabetes. As resources and attention were directed on the pandemic, people with NCDs couldn't help but feel rejected. Prescription renewal was just not enough for people with diabetes and diabetic foot ulcers uncontrolled blood sugar levels, and all the associated comorbidities. It is our expectation that the lessons learned from the management and delivery of health services during that time will inform better strategies moving forward. And in the event we are faced with a similar situation in the future. In spite of these setbacks, the association undertook a number of educational/informational activities using social media and in particular the Zoom conferencing platform. The community outreach program entitled Adopt Health Habits Campaign Phase 1 sought to encourage and increase intake of water and fruits instead of sweet drinks and sugar-dense foods through the Water Wednesday, Fruit Friday campaign. During the first quarter of 2020, activities continued at the primary and preschools in the Grand Bay Health District. Unfortunately, the program was suspended due to the closure of schools in the wake of COVID-19. The Adventist Health Ministry, led by Mrs. Priscilla Prevost, has become an important partner. In February 2020, the two organizations collaborated and convened a 3-day seminar titled Reversing Diabetes. Later that year, the association was again pleased to partner with the Adventist Health Ministry to successfully execute activities marking Diabetes Awareness Month and World Diabetes Day. March 2020, the association received a consignment of diabetes care products from the NGO Insulin for Life USA. The 2 pallets of supplies included insulin syringes, pen needles, lancets, lancing devices, alcohol pads, sharps, containers, and glucose meters. Supplies were subsequently distributed to the various health districts in November 2020 as part of activities in observance of Diabetes Awareness Month. November had been generally designated Diabetes Awareness Month, and a number of activities were implemented to coincide with the observance of World Diabetes Day, November the 14th. The month of diabetes awareness was built around the theme, Diabetes and the Nurse, Nurses Making a Difference, and included radio discussions, diabetes infomercials for radio and social media, and an educational forum targeting health personnel. The latter featured presenters from both Dominica and Barbados, as well as participation from both nations. Subjects covered were plant-based nutrition with Dr. Alicia Honore-Felix, a lifestyle physician, complementary treatments with Mrs. Almonda Chase Grant, trained diabetes educator and medical herbalist. Food care, Dr. Bell, who is a podiatrist. Wound care with Dr. Laura Esprit, Director of Primary Health Care Services in Dominica. In keeping with the chosen theme, the association presented corsages as tokens of appreciation to all nurses in primary health care. Similarly, World Diabetes Day 2021 was observed with the theme, Diabetes, Access to Food Care, if not now, when? Again, because of the ongoing restrictions brought about by the COVID pandemic, the activities were mainly media-based, featuring webinars and radio discussions. Diabetes app. This mobile application is interactive and will provide both administrative support for the association as well as valuable health information for the users. We anticipate that a register for people with diabetes will emerge, and the growth of the association can be realized through use of the app. Much more will be said in the presentation to follow. OACS Diabetes Prevention and Care Program. This is a World Diabetes Foundation grant-funded project implemented in Dominica and 4 other OACS member states. A significant aspect of this program is that all funds for approved projects are channeled through the local diabetes associations. Under this project, DOMDA received funding for its Adopt Healthy Habits campaign. It is anticipated that this program will resume later this year. Earlier this year, the association provided financial support to a young mother with type 1 diabetes who was in danger of losing her lower limb. The money was used to purchase medication. Other noteworthy areas. The association continues to share office space with the Dominica Cancer Society, with rent and utilities being paid through a grant from the government of Dominica. DOMDA also benefits from the National Employment Program, with the placement of an administrative assistant and who provides administrative support for both organizations. In addition, DOMDA receives an annual subvention of $20,000 from government. The association participated in meetings organized by the North American region of the IDF and the IDF Foundation Convention. These meetings were all held virtually. The Dominica Diabetes Association takes this opportunity to appeal for volunteers to assist the association in making a difference in the lives of people, especially those living with diabetes or those who are at risk of developing the disease. We urge you to step forward and volunteer your services. This could make a difference in your life or that of a relative or friend. We made this appeal at the previous AGM, and it is worth repeating. The Dominica Diabetes Association is extremely concerned with the seemingly increasing trend in obesity, especially among the children and young people, and appeal for attention on this cohort. We support front package labeling so that all consumers are informed of the high-in contents of food they consume. We urge the implementation of the octagonal labels, which prominently display high in sugar, high in fats, high in salt at the front of the food package. We give strong support to an increase in the tax on sugar-dense foods and drink, which was introduced in 2015. It would have been good if the measure had been extended to the foods with trans fat and high salt content. DOMDA is equally concerned that there appears to be little ongoing public education regarding the dangers posed by the sugar-sweetened beverages or the sweet drinks that are consumed daily. We call for a total ban on consumption of sweetened sugary snacks and drinks at school and within a certain perimeter of the schools, while encouraging increased intake of food, fruits, and water. And with these few provocative thoughts, I thank you for the courtesy of listening. Thank you.
That was a very comprehensive elaborate and also educational report in which she outlined the various activities that Domda has been engaged in. And one of those activities would have been working with the children at St. Luke's Primary School. Our next item on the agenda would be a sharing of an experience of one of us present here. Her name is Mrs. Antonia Guy. She's been diabetic and she's been practicing reversing diabetes. So she's here this morning to share with us and give us a brief experience of what it has been for her during that period of time.
Good morning, everyone. One of my favorite verses is from Psalms 103, verse 5, and it says, "He satisfies my mouth with good things, so that my youth is renewed like the eagle." And I have learned through that text and what it means that the good things for us, especially when we find ourselves in the punches of diabetes, is not always the tastiest, it's not always the sweetest. The good things aren't always the sassy things, but the good things are always the healthy things. In 2015, I was kind of fed up to some extent with some symptoms I was having. One, the constant peeing, and two, the constant thirst, getting up in the night between 10 to 12 times to pee. And I remember trying different things, trying to stop drinking water by 6 o'clock, and that did not help. So I said, you know what, let me just go to the doctor to find out what is wrong. And he sent me for an HbA1c test, and it showed that I was diabetic. Now, my results were not very high, but I was not pre-diabetic. My HbA1c said that I was in diabetic zone. And he was going to prescribe metformin for me. And I told him, I'm not a person that jumps at medication, for one. So first thing I told him, is there anything that I can do with regards to my health? And then I told him, I know that my church has had a number of health programs. So I told him, let me visit some of the things that my church teaches, and if it doesn't work, then I'll return. But either way, he told me, make sure I come back to him in 3 months' time. When I left him, I called 2 friends of mine. One of them is sitting with us, Nurse Priscilla Prevo, and I said, Nurse, if I am diabetic, and I don't want a diabetic reading, I don't want a good diabetic reading, because he told me that my diabetic reading was good. I don't want it. I wanted a normal, and I remember telling her, Nurse, I just want a normal person reading. And I don't know for those of you who are there, and if you have that pang and your heart says that you want a normal reading, then follow your heart. And I believe that there are health professionals that can lead you to that path, even right here. And both Nurse Prevo and my friend told me about the similar things. I had to look at my diet. So I had to go on a plant-based diet, no meat, no fish, no cheese, no eggs. I had to increase my walking, because I was already walking. I had to increase my water intake, and basically I had to follow New Start principles. And for those of you who would have heard or have not heard of New Start principles, it's basically looking more keenly, more closely at the acronym. So N would be for nutrition, E would be for exercise, W would be for water, S for sunlight, T would be for temperance, A, air, rest, R would be for rest, and T would be trust in God. So my life was focused a lot on looking at these principles and actually applying them to my life. Some of the changes that I had to make with regards to nutrition was also to move from refined foods to more complex foods, more complex carbohydrates, increasing my vegetables intake, and literally guarding the refined and what I was eating. And I remember she told me also to get a glucometer so I could actually monitor what my morning starts with and how my day ends. So I was literally journaling, and for 2 weeks, I literally saw the figures go down. So 2 weeks I was excited, and I was like, nurse, my figures are normal. And she said, okay, Antonia, your blood takes about 90 days before your blood works change, something like that. So she said, I have to continue it. And it has been, I can say it has been a rocky road. If you've been socialized to a certain style of growing up to eating, we get up and we eat bread and tea, or we eat porridge. In the evening, we eat porridge. And if we don't cook for the day, we drink tea and we drink bread. And so our average meal has sugars attached with it. And our taste buds can get accustomed to what we are attached to. So it has been a real rugged road, but I can tell you it has been a satisfying road, because I don't know for those persons who would have been on meds and would have been struggling with insulin resistance and everything like that. What I do know is that if you are willing to take charge of your health, there are professionals who can assist you. And don't just go on your own and just stop the medication. Work along with your doctor. Ask them what it is that you can do, what are some of the things that you can begin to literally initiate and take. So one, I would ask you to know what your goals are. What do you want for your life? Do you want to be on meds for your life? Because the reality of it is the medication does not care. It simply helps to control where you are at, all right? So know what your goals are. That is one. Be disciplined and be determined, and make everything that you do a matter of prayer. One of my favorite quotes says, he who realizes his own deficiencies, whether it's health deficiencies, financial deficiencies, but he who realizes his own deficiencies will spare no pains to reach the highest standard of health, highest standard of moral excellence, highest standard of physical excellence. Because the reality of it is, whilst there are constant battles that we fight, there are also precious victories that we can gain. And the battle over self, over obstacles, the battle over even appetite is of more value than our minds can estimate. So I challenge every one of you to take charge of your life. Thank you.
This AGM is hybrid. Implicit by this term hybrid, we are here physically present, and you also see from the screen those who are attending. The next person who's going to share is not here with us in person. And so I will give you a short bio of Dr. Reginald Lachlan. And it gives me great pleasure in a few minutes after this biography to introduce him. Dr. Reginald Lachlan, or simple Dr. Reggie, as he is affectionately called, is a national of the Federation of St. Kitts and also a medical practitioner by profession. He holds a BSc in Natural Science from the University of the West Indies, UE, 1975-1978, and his medical degree from the Carol Macinkowski Medical assembly and academy in Poland in the year 1985. From 1988 to 2018, he functioned as a district medical officer in St. Kitts, with chronic disease management as a major component of his job. He was an executive member of St. Kitts Nevis Red Cross Society from 1989 to 2012 and served as the president of that organization for the last 3 years. Dr. Reggie is an executive member and the PRO of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, has been from 2014 to present time. He is currently the chair-elect of the North American Caribbean sub-region of International Diabetes Federation. He is also working in private medical practice from 1988 to present. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now introduce you to Dr. Reginald Lachlan.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we heard you clear at Portsmouth.
Okay. All right. Welcome. On behalf of Dr. Tim, who is the chair of the North American and Caribbean branch of the International Diabetes Federation, and of course on my own behalf, I would like to say much greetings from the management team at NAC at this time. It's unfortunate that your good president, Marvelyn, is unable to be present, and we are wishing her a speedy recovery. You know, she has been a major player in the regional movement, and certainly I'm sure that you guys would be missing her tremendously, her important role that she's been playing since I have become a part of the organization. I want to say congratulations to the Dominica Diabetes Association on the achievement of another year of its existence, such that you are now having your AGM. We certainly appreciate Dominica's contribution to the process of sensitization and education on the common enemy that we are all battling with in NEC, and indeed the whole of the International Diabetes Federation. You know, it is a major battle, I must admit. We can reflect on the seriousness of the problem of diabetes by examining available data. It is said that statistics bears out the facts. Numbers tells the truth. So when people come and make statements and cannot substantiate it with figures, you would have the doubting pharmacists, obviously, who would be wondering, is he just airing his mouth? Or is there any reality, you know, in what is being said? So therefore, I have a few figures to try and substantiate my claims. And these figures are garnished from the latest International Diabetes Federation Atlas for 2021, where it states that in that atlas for 2021, the world was looking at approximately 537 million, with a capital M, persons living with diabetes. That is a significant number, 537 million. And the projections for the year 2030, that's only 8 years from now, the projections would put it at approximately 643 million, and then 784 million by the year 2045. Now, for those persons who love to dabble with numbers, those are significant. Those are indeed significant. We're looking at somewhere close to 10% of the world population. And these are estimates. There are a number of persons who are yet undiagnosed, who haven't yet showed up to a medical facility to receive that diagnosis. So with this set of figures that I've presented, I am willing to stretch my neck out and contend that those are conservative estimates, and probably in excess of that. Now, of interest to me, and no doubt to the Dominica Association as another member of NAC, is the data looking at our region. Now, NAC, in relation to its estimates, shows clearly that 1 in 7 persons in North America and the Caribbean are afflicted and affected by diabetes. That's in our region, North America and the Caribbean. And I would love to juxtapose that piece of information against the data for Africa. For Africa, it's 1 in 22. So the 1 in 7 for NAC represents approximately 14%. The 1 in 22 for Africa represents approximately 5%. And when we're talking about Africa, we're talking about countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, Ghana in West Africa, Kenya in East Africa. And I'm sure you'll be wondering what causes this major difference, because it means that they are probably doing something that we are not doing, or perhaps they are not doing something which we are doing, which we would love to be able to emulate the positives and hopefully cause this to result in an improvement in our statistics. I can only assume that in our countries here in the Caribbean and North America and the Caribbean, we love the processed foods. We love the quick fix. I'm not going to be calling any names of any fast food establishments because obviously, for obvious reasons, we do often in many territories receive support, from a variety of entities, business entities. So you can't overtly bite the hand that feeds you. But at the same time, we can encourage some of those entities to modify their approach that can redound to the benefit of persons, not only those affected and afflicted by diabetes, but also those who are at risk and those who are not yet bombarded, but at least help them to stay on the straight and narrow road and hopefully avoid some of those dreadful complications that we so clearly know are associated with that particular diagnosis. So that is one of the points that I would like us to bear in mind. Africa, 1 in 22. North America and the Caribbean, that includes Dominica and St. Kitts and Antigua and Trinidad and Jamaica, etc. 1 in 7. We would like to see some movement in those figures. NAC, according to the 2021 Atlas, had about 51 million persons living with diabetes, 51 million. And the projections for the year 2045 will be about 63 million. That's approximately 25% increase. So our numbers are going up. Our numbers are increasing dramatically. We know that in 2019, the data presented in the 2019 Atlas stated clearly that every 8 seconds, we were looking at a death possibly linked to diabetes. Every 8 seconds. I'm sure I've been talking here for more than 8 seconds right now. So if you were to calculate, it means we would have lost a number of persons just during my short speech so far. One of the objectives, one of the plans, one of the recommendations of the IDF was in subsequent IDF atlases to be able to show clearly that by virtue of our interventions, we can extend that time frame from 8 seconds, hopefully, to anything more than 8. But what does reality tell us? By 2021, unfortunately, we were seeing a death roughly every 5 seconds. That doesn't sound good at all. That is really and truly, that does make one very concerned. It would mean that we have to step up our game. That is a 2021 piece of information I just gave. But then what are we now faced with? Up comes COVID-19. And as your theme suggests, that you are reimagining the future. We have to be reimagining the future against the backdrop of the existence of COVID-19 in our societies. The thinking is that COVID-19 is not going anywhere. So we have to reimagine how are we going to continue to educate our populace in relation to diabetes against the backdrop of things like COVID-19, which would cause us to reassess and rearrange how we approach persons. You know, I'm here, of course, I'm alone, so I'm not masked. You know, I have no immediate threat in my vicinity, but this is the problem that we will have to learn to face as we reimagine the future based upon your theme. We are obviously gonna have to look at it through a different lens. How do we continue to assist? How do we continue to educate? How do we continue to deliver the goods and services associated with diabetes against the backdrop of COVID-19 that would probably, like I said, be around for some time to come? What would complicate things, obviously, is that we are hearing about new things on the horizon. Monkeypox. Another condition which can be passed on through close physical contact. We are still having to deal with HIV/AIDS. We still have to deal with tuberculosis. We still have to deal with malaria. These are major infectious diseases afflicting and affecting many countries throughout the world, and indeed in our region as well. Right in our region. So as we continue the battle against diabetes, we have to definitely reimagine, refocus, or as we say in St. Kitts, I'm not too sure about Dominica, we have to wheel and come again with some new strategies, some new approaches, so that we can see the benefits, we can see the positive outcomes, but at the same time, we don't get ourselves bogged down with the newer illnesses or the continued existence of some of those big fellas, which I called a while ago. So our focus has to be continuation of the things that we are doing. That is to say, the educating and the screening for most of our member associations, and in some cases, providing the access to supplies and services at significantly discounted rates. Now, what are some of the possible problems that would exacerbate diabetes-related issues? Lack of access to services. That is a problem that is probably more pronounced in the larger territories. And the word larger is, of course, relative. In as much as, Dominica, from my school time, geography told me Dominica was approximately 300 to 310 square miles. St. Kitts about a little more than a quarter of that in size. But Dominican Republic, for example, is a large territory. So therefore, for them, the access to services would be significantly different and would be a challenge in countries of that size. Jamaica, 4,400 square miles. Access there, no doubt, may be a problem. We in St. Kitts do not have that problem because for a small country, we have 12 government health centers on the island, equally spaced around. I would suspect that you have similar distribution of services, government facilities in Dominica. So access may not be as big a problem as we see in some of the bigger territories. Another problem, cost associated with the procurement of a number of supplies. Unfortunately, in St. Kitts, we do not have available, as in some of the other territories, things like the new treatment modalities, the insulin pens. Our government facilities provides the vials of insulin. People still have to purchase the syringes. And if they want the fancier pens, they have to purchase them. They have to purchase glucometers. Our government supplies do not provide glucometers. The Diabetes Association in St. Kitts is on the warpath in order to try to get access for those persons afflicted and affected. So that is obviously a problem that can exacerbate diabetes related issues. And I'm sure this may be a similar situation in many other territories. We also have problems associated with the lack of information and education in some places. And of course, the restrictions to the provision of this information and education based upon the introduction of COVID-19 in the last 2 years. So you have no access to the persons, to the places, to the schools, as I heard in the presentation from the presidential address. So these are challenges as we try to reimagine this future. A very important and significant issue is the lack of a database to get accurate figures when it comes to the actual numbers of persons living with diabetes. Lots of the figures that we use are only estimates. And why is this so? In our region in particular, many persons do not access government facilities where you can get accurate information. They go to private providers. That is the case in St. Kitts, and it is very prevalent amongst males, men who are challenged with that diagnosis. They are afraid, for a variety of reasons, of facing the music in a government facility. They just don't want the information out there. But then it comes back to haunt them because they do not access all of the services and supplies, and they have to face the costs associated with, the hiding. So these are some of the issues. We want that database, and we, from NAC, we are hoping that we can find a way, with the recommendations, of course, coming from member associations like DOMDA and other member associations. How can we together get an accurate database going so that we know what our actual numbers are like, and we can remodel our approach to tackle the ever seemingly increasing numbers of persons suffering with diabetes. We also would like to think that some of these barriers are not unsurmountable. We think that good collaboration between a functioning member association like DOMDA, like the St. Kitts Diabetes Association and some of the others, good collaboration between them and the ministries of health and education, and of course government in general, would definitely be very helpful. We commend DOMDA for its various activities. I listen intently and carefully to the things that you guys are doing. You're attending, you're visiting schools, you're carrying out education amongst the youngest of the young. Because if you want to be able to have an impact on diabetes in any country, you want to tackle it at a very early stage. You want to tackle those things that you are observing and I'm observing here. Those vendors selling the nice things, and I put a nice in inverted commas, at the periphery. The condensed milk with cornflakes. I only discovered that recently when we started doing some school screening. I didn't even know that that was a phenomenon taking place and something that was an attraction for youngsters. Which youngster doesn't like something nice and sweet? I can recall growing up as a child, condensed milk was yummy. But now we know the impact it can have. So therefore, we have to pursue with venom that fight to be able to get those things off the table and encourage, as our good friend who was on the floor just before me, speaking about the positive approach with the greens, vegetables, and fruits, taking out the sweet, taking out the processed foods, because that is our mandate. That is the mandate of all of the diabetes associations, to try and improve and change the lifestyle habits. Lifestyle changes can go a long way in improving the lot of persons suffering with diabetes. So it is my hope that with these brief introductory remarks coming from NAC, that we can make a dent in the numbers. We can see a change in that every 8-second thing, which went to 5 seconds. We hope that with our involvement, DAMDA plus St. Kitts Diabetes Association and all of the other NAC members, we are hopeful that we can see some improvement, such that when the next atlas or the next two atlases, we can say, well, we have done our work, we are continuing to do our work, and we are seeing results. It's an uphill task, I must admit. It's not easy because we have to fight with a lot of institutions, we have to fight with a lot of business entities, but once we present the real picture, including statistics, including data, I'm sure that a win is possible. A win certainly is possible. So thanks much for inviting me to have these words, and I can only wish again Marvin a speedy recovery. We definitely would love to have you back on track and doing your utmost best, to keep DAMDA and all of its affiliates going in the fight for diabetes. So have a pleasant morning, and I would at this time close down and say bye for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reggie. You heard the applause that came from the audience. That is an indication that they were listening and that whatever you shared in terms of diabetes were very educational for them. So once again, on behalf of DAMDA, we say thanks to you for your brief sharing. The next item on the agenda is what is called the Diabetes App. In this era of technology, everything is presented to us on a smartphone or some other type of medium of communication. So here with us this morning is none other than Mr. Odin Samuel, who has been instrumental in helping the association to develop an app that can be used for diabetes. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite him to come and give us a brief explanation of the operation of the app. I know you don't have it with you now, but when it is available, at least you'll be able to access it for yourselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Odin Samuel, as mentioned before. Unfortunately, I am not the star. It will be the diabetes app. So I'll bring it up on the screen so everyone can actually take a look at it. So I'll be in the corner here.
Sorry about that. Odin, we didn't, or I didn't take notice of the time. So I want to probably interrupt your presentation because it's more than time that our guest, our featured speaker should be there, right? And I will call on Dr. Honore Felix to introduce the guest speaker. My apologies for that little oversight.
Good morning again. In August 2019, I had the opportunity to be personally trained by Dr. Neal Bernard and the entire team of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine in Washington, D.C., and they helped me become the first Food for Life instructor in Dominica and in the Caribbean, where we educate through teaching plant-based cooking classes and lifestyle to tackle disease, that is, prevent, treat, and cure. And so it is my pleasure this morning to present and introduce Dr. Neal Bernard to Dominica and to our AGM. Neal Bernard, MD, FACC, is an adjunct professor of medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C., and president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Dr. Bernard has led numerous research studies investigating the effects of diet on diabetes, body weight, and chronic pain, including a groundbreaking study of dietary interventions in type 2 diabetes funded by the National Institutes of Health that paved the way for viewing type 2 diabetes as a potentially reversible condition for many patients. Dr. Bernard has authored more than 100 scientific publications and 20 books for medical and lay readers, and is the editor-in-chief of the Nutrition Guide for Clinicians, a textbook made available to all U.S. medical students. As president of the Physicians Committee, Dr. Bernard leads programs advocating for preventive medicine, good nutrition, and high ethical standards in research. His research contributed to the acceptance of plant-based diets in the dietary guidelines for Americans. In 2015, he was named a fellow of the American College of Cardiology. In 2016, he founded the Bernard Medical Center in Washington, D.C., as a model for making nutrition a routine part of all medical care. Working with the Medical Society of the District of Columbia and the American Medical Association, Dr. Bernard has authored key resolutions, now part of the AMA policy, calling for a new focus on prevention and nutrition in federal policies and in medical practice. In 2018, he received the Medical Society of the District of Columbia's Distinguished Service Award. He has hosted 4 PBS television programs on nutrition and health. He is originally from Fargo, North Dakota. Dr. Bernard received his MD degree at the George Washington University School of Medicine and completed his residency at the same institution. He practiced at the St. Vincent's Hospital in New York before returning to Washington, D.C. to found the Physicians Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, here present with me today and virtually, I present to you Dr. Neal Bernard. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to share this time with you. Congratulations on this wonderful event, and I am very grateful to be able to be part of it. Let me preface my remarks with a childhood memory, if you don't mind. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and my father, who had grown up in the cattle business and decided he didn't like that business, he ended up going to medical school, and he became the diabetes expert for Fargo, North Dakota, and all of the eastern part of the state. And anybody who had diabetes at some point would see my father. And he would come home from the clinic around 6 o'clock or 6:15, and he'd walk in the front door and set down his medical bag and plop down in a chair. And I never once heard my father say, that anyone with diabetes ever got better. Rather, his goal was different. It was to slow down the damage. It was to try to delay the heart attack, to delay the neuropathic pain, to slow down the loss of kidney function. The idea of turning this disease around or making it go away was something that was unimaginable at that time. When I went to medical school, he didn't encourage me to get involved in diabetes at all. And I have to say, things have changed. We now have quite a lot that we would like to share that has really created a whole new kind of optimism that we can use in the medical profession and that people with diabetes can embrace. Let me share my screen and provide some information on this. In 2003, the National Institutes of Health gave our research team a grant to try to come up with a very different approach for type 2 diabetes. We focused not on medications, but we focused on food. And we tested two different diets. First, we tested a portion control diet. This will sound pretty familiar. And we compared it with a plant-based diet. Let me describe the two diets. The portion control diet said limit calories to lose weight, keep carbohydrate fairly steady, and don't eat too much of bad fats like trans fats or saturated fat. The plant-based diet, however, did not have any calorie limit. It didn't have any carbohydrate limit. There was no limit on portions at all. It said, don't eat animal products and minimize oils. We had a third step also, which was to favor low glycemic index foods. And that just means something like, say, white bread is high glycemic index. It will cause your blood sugar to rise, but rye bread or pumpernickel bread are more gentle on your blood sugar. Or beans. Most fruits are gentle on blood sugar, so those are low glycemic index foods. Okay, so we brought in individuals who had type diabetes, and to cut to the chase, the red line here is the experience of the people on the portion-controlled diet, and they did very well. Their A1C, which started out close to 8, dropped to about 7.5. So they had a drop of about 0.4 absolute percentage points, and that was good. The blue line here is the people on the plant-based diet or the vegan diet. And what, as you see, their reduction in A1C was 3 times greater. It was a drop of 1.2 absolute percentage points just on average. And we started to see something which we hadn't seen before, which is people whose medications had gone up and up and up started to come down. Or maybe they didn't need medications anymore, or maybe they were off all medications and their A1C was normal. These were things that I wasn't prepared to see. Let me describe one individual. This man was 35 years old, came in, volunteered for our research study. Why did he come in? He said, well, he had had diabetes for 4 years, and he was treated with metformin, and he had lots of other problems. He had excess body weight, he had an elevated cholesterol level, he had erectile dysfunction, and he told me about his family. He said his maternal grandmother had diabetes, his maternal grandfather had diabetes, and he said, if I don't get this under control, I'm going to go blind. I'm going to have a heart attack, or I'm going to lose a leg or something like that. So at baseline, he weighed 276 pounds, and his A1C was 9.5. He was worried about that. His cholesterol was up too, and particularly his bad cholesterol, or LDL-C. His erectile dysfunction was symptomatic, and the approach that we put him on was part of a clinical trial. So it said, avoid animal products, minimize oils, favor low glycemic index foods. That was it. At 3 months, he had lost about 25 pounds. His A1C was down to 7.1%. We didn't check his lipids at that point, but his erectile dysfunction had gone into remission. And now at 14 months, by the way, let me show you these data. If the little photo strip on the right-hand side of the screen is in the way, just minimize that, or you can drag it out of the way or whatever. Now, what we found is that he was down 59 pounds. His A1C was 5.3 on no medications. His cholesterol and LDL were better, and his erectile dysfunction remained in remission. However, what got my attention was an A1C of 5.3. This is a man who had had diabetes with a high A1C when he joined the study. And now his A1C was not even in the pre-diabetes range. This was a totally normal A1C on no medications whatsoever. When I got his lab slip, I have to tell you, I wanted to call my father and tell him what we'd found. Because the possibility of returning an A1C down to a teenage level and get off medications and effectively have this disease do a U-turn was something that we had never contemplated as being possible before. Let me share with you what happened in his body. This purple oval is a muscle cell. Or it could be some other cell in your body. But let's say this is a muscle cell. Muscle cells are fueled by glucose. Glucose is a good thing. Blood sugar is a good thing. Glucose fuels your body. It's energy for your body. The problem is glucose stays outside. It can't get through that muscle cell membrane. The glucose tries to get inside the cell. It can't. It stays out in the blood until a key, insulin, arrives at the surface of the cell, and that insulin key, through intracellular signaling, opens up little channels and allows the glucose to come inside. And now your blood sugar goes down, and the sugar can do what it's supposed to do, which is to power that cell. So what could go wrong? What could go wrong is I live in Fargo, North Dakota. And so that's my dinner. And that's my lunch. And that's my breakfast. I'm eating a lot of fatty food. Fatty foods? Yeah. Well, why are we talking about fat if this is a diabetes talk? Well, first of all, there is a lot of fat in these foods. And when you eat these fats, something happens. Particles of fat get into your cell. Fat from the foods you eat, the steak, the chicken, the fish, the fryer grease, the fat builds up inside the cells. Now, doctors hate words like fat because it has only 3 letters. So we'll call it intramyocellular lipid, but it's fat inside muscle cells. And when microscopic particles of fat build up inside your cells, the insulin will still attach to the surface of the cell, but it can't work. The cell is insulin resistant. Insulin is not working. So what do I do? Well, let's say I'm in an NIH research study and I'm testing a vegan diet. Well, there isn't any animal fat in the diet, is there? So the fat starts going away. And if it's also low in oils, then there's not much of any kind of fat, and the fat inside the cell starts to dissipate. And as it does so, insulin resistance goes away, insulin sensitivity returns, and now your cell is more like it was when you were a teenager, and everybody's happy. So let's go up to Yale University. At Yale University's Department of Endocrinology, Kit Peterson, Jerry Schulman, their team has been doing work with diabetes for a long time, and they did a fascinating but very simple study. They brought in 26 healthy people, and they gave them a glucose tolerance test. Everyone showed up. They gave them a cup of syrup, basically. They drank it down, and if their blood sugar came right back down, they were insulin sensitive. But if they drank the syrup and their blood sugar went up and didn't come back down, it stayed up, they are insulin resistant. And now, let's go on the elevator. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to show you first. The age of the people, they're young. Their weight, they're not overweight. And their A1Cs show that they do not have diabetes. But now let's get on the elevator and let's go down to the basement, and there is an MR scanner, magnetic resonance spectroscopy. We are going to look inside is the muscle cells of these people. We're going to see the fat buildup inside their muscle cells. So on the left-hand side of this slide, every dot is a person. And we're looking at the intramyocellular lipid of the insulin-sensitive subjects, those who are normal, those who are healthy. Every dot here, again, is a person. Now, these are the insulin-resistant participants, and as you can see, they have a lot more fat inside their muscle cells. They've got a lot more intramyocellular lipid. Now, on the right-hand side is mitochondrial activity. You remember your mitochondria, those energy burners that are inside your cells. Every dot, again, is a person. These are the healthy people. These are the insulin-resistant people. What I'm showing you is that their mitochondria are being turned off by that accumulating fat. Now, these are healthy people, young people. They're not overweight and they don't have diabetes. They got healthy A1Cs, but the process has started because of the foods they are eating. For some of them, the fat is already building up inside their muscle cells. Their intramyocellular lipid is accumulating. It is shutting down their mitochondrial activity. They will not get diabetes now. But 15 years from now, they'll go to see the doctor who says, I'm worried about your blood sugar. You've got diabetes. They'll blame it on genetics or they'll blame it on fruit. Stop. It has to do with the buildup of fat that came from the diet inside the muscle and liver cells, causing insulin resistance. And that is the driver of type 2 diabetes. And if we ignore that, we are ignoring the cause of the disease. I emphasize this because your patients have never heard of this. Many of your colleagues have never heard of this, despite the fact that the study that I'm describing right now was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2004. But to this day, patients imagine that it's all caused by something else, but you can see the importance of this. Okay, many other research teams have looked at plant-based diets and A1C, and as you can see with this forest plot, if the little black squares are to the left of the center line, that means A1C improved with a plant-based diet, and as you can see, all the studies show a very consistent effect. Now, some people will say soda is the problem. Soda is not health food. And in a BMJ meta-analysis done in 2015, sugar-sweetened sodas were associated with an 18% increased risk of diabetes. And this was also true even if you adjusted for adiposity. However, the researchers went further, and they looked at artificially sweetened sodas and found that they increased diabetes risk too. Wait a minute. If sugar is, we imagine, to be the cause of diabetes, why is it that soda causes it even if it doesn't have any sugar in it? Wait, a couple years later, 2017, the CMAG, the Canadian Medical Association Journal, published a meta-analysis looking at not just sugar from soda, but from all different sources. And they found that the more sugar people ate, the lower their risk of diabetes. Now for fructose, a little bit of an increase. For sucrose, table sugar, there was a reduction in diabetes. What's going on? Why is it that sugar in general, fruit sugar, natural sugars that may be part of foods, are not associated with increased diabetes risk, but sugar from soda is? I think the reason is that sodas come with cheeseburgers. Look at these dinners. Isn't that terrible? Here's that burger, fries, and the soda behind them. You could say the soda is associated with diabetes, but it may well be that cheese, which is 70% fat, that burger, which is fatty, the French fries that have a lot of grease baked, fried into them, or the fried chicken. These things dump fat inside the muscle and liver cells, causing insulin resistance, leading to diabetes, and the soda is there along for the ride. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that sodas are healthy. Even if they have a medical degree, like Dr. Pepper. No, not health food. But the big problem here is these other unhealthy foods that are part of a package that leads to diabetes. Okay, so at this point, your patient is going to say, Doctor, I want to take advantage of this. I want to get better. If I can, I'd like to not have diabetes at all. And more importantly, I'd like to help my family to stay free of this. How are we going to deal with it? Well, you can explain it to your patients, but logic only goes so far. I'm sorry to tell you that logic plays almost no role in human behavior, actually. So when a person picks their breakfast, they're often influenced by advertising, what I'm going to call noise, or culture, what their parents eat, what their friends eat, or wishful thinking, or the cost of things, or food addictions, other things. Logic plays very little role in what people choose. So you may be a doctor. You know a lot about diabetes and you're explaining it to a patient, and here's what goes on in the patient's brain as you're describing what a plant-based diet can do. You tell them a plant-based diet can improve your diabetes dramatically. The patient's ideatron in the brain says, well, that's an interesting idea. These ideas form. A plant-based diet might be good. This is what my doctor is telling me. But these ideas irritate the famiglia, which then stimulates the don't do it Terry gland to release ignorphins. I'm kidding, of course. But the patients are going to ignore what you have to say if you rely solely on logic. Here's the approach that we use. At our medical center, we break the diet change into 2 steps, and I've never seen anyone unable to do it. Step 1 is you ask the patient to just check out the possibilities if they were eating a healthy plant-based diet. So what that means is they take a piece of paper and you ask them to fill out different categories and think of healthy breakfasts and lunches and dinners and snacks that have no animal products in them at all. Okay, the patient will need some suggestions. Oatmeal with cinnamon and raisins, maybe. Maybe instead of cream on my bran flakes, I could have almond milk instead. If you've never tasted it, now is your chance to try it. The idea is simply for the patient to pick out things they like, try them, and if they work, put them on their list. So at lunch, the patient has pizza without the cheese. If you like it, put it on your list. And when you go out to eat, if you're a favorite Italian restaurant, we'll give you spaghetti with the tomato sauce instead of the meat sauce, or a healthy salad or whatever. If you like it, put it on your list. Or the Latin American restaurant will give you veggie fajitas, bean burritos, and beans and rice. Or Chinese cuisine, rice and vegetables and tofu dishes. Or Japanese, yes, the sushi bar will make you a cucumber roll or an asparagus roll. Subway or Taco Bell, not necessarily the pinnacle of culinary art, but if a bean burrito without the cheese or a veggie sub is something you like, it goes on your list. So the patient comes back a week later with a pretty good list of foods that happen to be totally vegan, but that they actually like to eat. Great, you're ready for step 2. Step 2 is to take a 3-week period and have it all vegan all the time, all plant-based all the time. And the patient says, well, that's easy because I can do anything for 3 weeks. And frankly, I've already got the foods that I like. I already figured it out. At the end of that 3-week period, the patient will say, 2 things have happened to me. Physically, I'm changing. I'm losing weight. My blood sugar is coming down. But their tastes are changing too. They haven't had chicken wings in 3 weeks, and they discovered they don't care. They're kind of glad to not have them. They like what's happening. They like the improvement. And as their blood sugar comes down, their medication needs will come down. And this is why this is the most powerful diet that people have used for diabetes. And it means you've got to keep in close touch with your patients because their medication needs are going to drop. And if you don't drop their medicines, they're going to become hypoglycemic. Now, of course, they want to get off their medications, and it's the job of the caregiver to work with them and make that happen. There are some tools that we use in our clinical setting. One is called the 21-Day Vegan Kickstart App. It's a free app on iPhones and Androids, and it's in English and in Spanish. And it has menus and recipes and cooking videos, and people really love it. We also have something called Foodinstructions.org. We have this at our checkout in our clinic, and we ask the patients either to log on to foodinstructions.org when they get home, or just shoot that QR code. In fact, you can do this now if you want to. If you just take your phone and point it at that and shoot the QR code, it'll bring you to this website, which happens to have very short videos explaining everything I've just said, but is kind of a harmless cartoon lasting just a few minutes and helps the patients to remember what you've said and to share it with their families. So let me stop at that point. And I want to stop my share and say, I'm very grateful to you for allowing me to participate in this session. The practice of medicine and tackling diabetes has never been more challenging than it is today. And that's because, well, frankly, we have more foods that are available to us that really don't love us back. And we have economic issues, travel issues, medical practice challenges that sometimes don't work in our favor or the patient's favor. That said, we know more about diabetes than ever before. We have better food options than ever before. And if we put these together and help our patients to learn about healthy food, if they goof up a little bit and we don't moralize with them, we just help them back on their feet like a good athlete who can get back in the race. We're not only helping them to tackle their diabetes, we're going to break the cycle where parent passes diabetes on to the next generation along with the family favorite recipes. We can break that cycle and have better health than we ever thought possible. Thank you for letting me share this time with you today.
Nurse, before I know you're not ready for that, but I'd just like you to come here and say thanks to our guest speaker on behalf of DOMDA.
Pleasant good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Dominica Diabetes Association, it gives me great pleasure to say special thanks to Dr. Neal Bernard for taking time out to address us at this annual general meeting of the Dominica Diabetes Association. I use material from, I've been to the site, I've been using his material, I've been practicing what he says, and I've been sharing with clients, and I am certainly happy to have him share with us, and I believe, as our theme says, reimagining diabetes in Dominica, I believe the information shared here this morning, both health professionals and clients represented here today can take that information, and I believe Dominica would be on its way to having a better future as it relates to diabetes as a result of being present here today and as a result of your presentation, Dr. Bernard. Thank you so much, and I hope sometime in the future we can have you be here in Dominica in person. May God richly bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nurse Prevo. I think you are the most appropriate person who would have expressed thanks to our guest speaker. And now the diabetes app. I will now invite Odin to share on the diabetes app.
Good morning again, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen since I can't come to the center. All right, so everyone should be able to see. Yes. All right. So, the goal of the diabetes app is actually to create a database. So, to the Dominica Diabetes Association can basically gather information. As one of the presenters mentioned before, one of the challenges is basically being able to get data. So this is basically what the diabetes app is looking to solve. I will go through it briefly. The app itself, it's not available yet. It's still in development. So what I will do is just give you a brief demo of its functionalities. So again, the app has two main goals. One, to provide the Dominica Diabetes Association with a database of users. It could either be those who actually have diabetes or those who are basically friends or family members of people with diabetes, because we know diabetes affect mostly everyone in some way. So the other aspect of the app is also to allow users to take what we call a diabetes risk score. So I will just go in that here. Right. So as mentioned before, the app is geared towards members of the Diabetes Association, non-members, which is basically friends and families of people who have diabetes, and we also have what we call prospects, which is people who might be interested but not fully ready yet to basically sign up to be a member of the association. So I will give you an example of what the data in terms of the diabetes risk score. So let me just take the test here. All right, so with the diabetes risk score, you will basically enter your information, and at the end, it will basically let you know in terms of what is your risk as it relates to diabetes. Now, just remember the app is not a doctor, so at the end of the day, you still have to visit your doctor, but it will just give you an indication in terms of what your risk is. So if I can just put in some dummy data, just give me a second. Okay, right. So you will see with these two records, one was done before and one was done now, it will indicate the one has increased risk and one has a high risk. So let me just open up the high risk. So based on the data that you enter into the application, it will basically give you a score in terms of points, which would be 29 points, and then it will basically indicate your risk level. And chances of having type 2 diabetes is basically 1 in 14. So that's basically the app just giving you an idea in terms of your risk. So anyone can basically, well, once the app is live, would be able to download the app, install it, and take the diabetes risk score, which you can basically bring to your doctor and you can have a conversation with them in terms of how to lower your risk. So I will also just show quickly. Right, so there are additional features that is basically included in the app, such as smart notes. You can basically take notes. And going back, there's also events list. So as the association is basically creating events, it will basically be listed there, and then you can basically RSVP in terms of choosing to attend or not. Yes. No. Right. And also included, there is transaction history. Long term, we would basically be looking to have members able to make their contributions for the diabetes membership directly via the app. So that is something that would be done long term. So in a nutshell, again, the main purpose of the app is to create a database and also to allow persons to take their diabetes risk score. So, thank you.
So we have come to the end of this first section. The next part of the meeting will be the business meeting. So I now invite this user to say thanks to many people in the background, as well as those of us who are here, who have made it possible that today's activity could be successful and fruitful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Dominica Diabetes Association, we wish to express our deepest gratitude to everyone who contributed in any way in making this meeting, AGM meeting, the success that it is. So far, we would like to thank Dr. Honore for opening us in prayer. And we have Miss Guy, who shared, person living with diabetes, who shared her experience. Really, if she did it, so can others. We think of the opportunity technology has afforded us in reaching each other, both here and abroad. And we are very grateful to Mr. Odin Samuel, Mr. Lestrade, and forgive me if I miss out anybody, but all those in one way or other has afforded us the opportunity to reach others, not just in Dominica, but outside. Imagine we could have our guest speaker, Dr. Bernard, speak to us on a very important issue in managing our diabetes. We have Dr. Reginald Lachlan, who addressed us from the NAC IDF, who addressed us, and we thank him very much for the information given in terms of the survey about the risks, the complications, and the cases of death in diabetes. This is a wake-up call for us that we really need to do something, that we really need to focus on how we can reimagine the course of managing diabetes. We have Dr. Neal Bernard, who shared with us some case study and really gave us food for thought. Because, as we know, diabetes can be managed, it can be prevented, diabetes can be reversed. And we have plant-based diets that if we follow, that can greatly assist us. And as testimony by one of the persons living with diabetes, we see what a great change can occur if we follow. So thank you very much, Dr. Bernard, for sharing this information with us at the address. Without you, those present here today, and those listening via the media, we are extremely grateful in you joining us, because without your presence, we would not be able to have a meeting. In addition to that, we have the other media personnel. We have GIS, we have EMO News, we have people from Multi Solutions, Inc. And who else? Did I miss out anybody? Anyway, thank you very much for making it possible for others to have the information. Even after the annual general meeting is over, I am sure that we could listen to GIS, EMO News, and be au fait with what went on today. Mr. Ode shared with us about the diabetes app, and as we see, it can be used as a database for the Diabetes Association, and also as members with diabetes to keep a score as to their risk. So hopefully, as it is developed, we would wish that as many persons as possible would make use of the app so that we can control diabetes and live a much more fruitful life. Anybody else that I missed out? Miss the rapporteur, Miss Paul, thank you very much for being there. We know that the information that you are taking is going to go a long way in terms of informing, and also we use the information back in terms of our planning and the way forward. Thank you all. Thank you, Juan. Thank you all. Not forgetting those who made this special effort to come from the various health districts, the various other organizations. We say thank you to all for your attendance and helping us in making this meeting a success. For those of us remaining, we thank you and we look forward to the other part of the meeting. Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of the first part of the meeting. And I think there are probably snacks available at the back. And we should begin again in the next few minutes by 11:15. By 11:15. business part of it is not streamed live.